We don't even really care anymore about what the truth of reality is. We look for a group, a gang, a club, that we feel we can best vibe with, whether it be religious, scientific, conspiracy theorism, comics culture, fashion culture, sports culture, Sudoku culture, or whatever. We find our tribe and we settle in. This platform suppresses the hell out of my videos as if it thinks anybody out there is in the slightest bit interested in truth. I'd like to reassure the owners of this platform. Dudes, you can cool your jets and stop overplaying your hand. If you carry on like this, you'll only make people interested in me and my work who were never going to be interested in me and my work if they didn't see how you were overplaying your hand so heavily. Just let me have a few friends to talk to, for fuck's sake. And we can settle in, like everybody else. I know I'm wasting my breath. Guys, I'm not coming to get you. I'm not coming to get you, and you're just overplaying your hand. You don't get it, do you? Ah well, let's have another one for the void. I can do this all day. So, metaphysics in a nutshell. Why does anything exist at all? There are truths that are entirely existentially incapable of not being true. The most simple and absolute of these truths are the two foundational non-physical truths: that there are three spatial dimensions and that one moment follows another. These two truths possess no physical attributes of their own, despite what our modern theoretical physicists may say. They are simply two truths that cannot not be true, in any place, at any time, at any scale. It does not matter how large or small you become relative to anything else. It does not matter how fast or slow you travel relative to anything else. You will experience that there are three spatial dimensions, and you will experience that one moment follows another, because it is not possible to not experience this, regardless of relative differences between one experience and another. So, if existence bothers to exist because the simplest truths of existence are literally, existentially incapable of not being true, what qualifies a truth as being a truth that cannot not be true? A truth is a truth because it expresses the truth of itself. So, for example, in the case of the two most foundational non-physical truths. The truth of the three spatial dimensions is expressed at all times, in all places, without exception. And just so with the expression of the truth of the passage of time. One moment follows another, wherever you are, whatever you are. It is the expression of any given truth in question that means it qualifies as being true. Another word for expression here is iteration. The truth expresses. The truth iterates. Truth iterates because it cannot stop being true. From one spatial location to the next. From one moment to the next. And so, truths that cannot not be true, therefore, iterate throughout infinite space for all time. Why does the physical exist? Within the context of infinite space for all time, there can be no such thing as complete nothing, anywhere, at any time. The only reason that there is space for all time is because there are existential truths in iteration in all spaces at all times. And existential truths in iteration are not nothing. They are something. Truths that iterate in time and space iterate relative to themselves and each other, in space and over time. Truths iterating at a large scale, relative to truths iterating at a smaller scale, have qualities that are contrasting relative to each other. Truths iterating at a fast speed relative to truths iterating at a slower speed have qualities that are contrasting relative to each other. And contrasting qualities iterating relative to each other in space and over time is what physicality is. That is all that physicality is. So, what about consciousness? Truths that cannot not be true, in iteration, relative to each other, cannot break themselves, and they cannot break each other, because they are truths that are literally, existentially incapable of being broken. And so, they cannot help but take their own unbreakability and the unbreakability of all truth everywhere into account. This is mechanistically synonymous with these truths being aware of each other. Truth in relative iteration cannot help but be self-conscious, and it cannot help but be conscious of those truths that are iterating most closely to it, and having the most immediate impact on it. This is what consciousness is. What does all of this mean for a human being? The expression, the iteration of truth is change. The truth itself does not change, but in order to even qualify as being truth, the truth of it must always be in some form of relative expression or other. And so, truth experiences its own changing self-expression forever. This is no more true and no less true of you as it is for anybody or anything. The truth expresses itself, and this expression of itself informs the next expression of itself. And so, truth oscillates eternally. Your heart expands and contracts. Your lungs expand and contract. You wake up, you go to sleep. You wake up, you go to sleep. You witness the oscillation of day and night. You witness the oscillation of the seasons. You come into physical form. You go out of physical form. You come into physical form. You go out of physical form. And the truths that oscillate for an individual human being are the very same truths that oscillate for an entire human species, for our collective. They just oscillate at their own scale-appropriate form. We wake up and we go to sleep. We forget and we remember. And eternity makes us glad of both. What about God? There are truths that cannot not be true. They are just existentially incapable of not being true. This is the reason for all things, not God. All relative differences between different qualities of existence within the three spatial dimensions and over time are relative effects. To say that a thing is a relative effect is not at all to say it is not real. It is only to say that it is effectively real because it is having an effect. So, for example, gravity is a relative effect. Our passage through time is a relative effect. Our movement through space is a relative effect. Physical matter is a relative effect. The Mandela effect is a relative effect. Some relative effects are relatively simple. Some are relatively complex. and some are infinitely complex. But as complex and mysterious as relative effect may be, it is an expression of truth that cannot stop being true. Because everything is this. There is no room for anything else. Because truths that must iterate in all places at all times both cause the room and take up all of the room. To take an effect and name it as the cause of truth is to get the direction of causality backwards. Truth is truth because it cannot help but be true. And all expression of truth follows from that. Those that have experiences that one might describe as a religious experience are experiencing truth in iteration. No more, no less. So, what now? What now, indeed? As living truth in iteration, we cannot help but be self-aware. As one that is self-aware, we cannot help but notice that some experiences of being living truth in iteration feel better, while some feel worse. As one who notices that some experiences feel better while some feel worse, we cannot help but desire the experiences that feel better to us over and above the ones that feel worse to us. As living truth in iteration, we get no choice about being living truth in iteration. Ever. We get zero choice about this. And we get zero choice about this forever. So it is true to say that we have zero free will with regards the issue of existing. And this is not ever going to change. But the quality of our existence is a changing thing that can be and is directly influenced by us, by our decisions, our behaviors, our thoughts and feelings, by our choices. Human culture right now, it's flat out does not know that we are living truth in iteration. Those who are religious do not know and understand this. Those who are scientifically minded do not know and understand this. And everybody in between does not currently know and understand this. The most helpful answer to the question, so what now, in the context of this discussion, is for us to know and understand this truth. Because when one knows and understands the truth, one may make choices for oneself that are coherent with the truth, and thereby influence the quality of one's eternal existence according to one's personal desires for oneself. This applies at the level of you as an individual, and it applies at the level of us all as a collective. And this coherency with the truth has not been possible for human culture so far in remembered human history. So, what now? What now for you? What now for us? Know and understand the truth as best you may. And then choose